Welcome to Rockin' Reviews. Have any of you gone a long time without listening to an artist or a band and you forgot how good they are? One of those bands for me has to be Van Halen. This band, who got their start in the late 70s, has become one of the greatest hard rock bands of all time. While their career has spanned almost 4 decades now, their main contribution to music has to be between 1978 and 1984, where they had 6 albums under frontman David Lee Roth. At that point, they had many classics such as Runnin' with the Devil, Panama, In the Cradle Will Rock, Unchained, and many, many others. They really played rock and roll the way it should have been in the mid-'80s. And it's really a shame that they played in the 80s, because to be honest, for me it wasn't the best time for rock and roll. Hair bands were dominating the airwaves, and unfortunately, some people feel the need to mix Van Halen up with those groups. Now, just to clarify, for anyone who doesn't know Van Halen or is confused on the matter, let me make a few things clear. Van Halen is a rock and roll band. They are a hard rock band, and they are in no way associated with hair bands at all. I see it all over the place sometimes when young people are describing Van Halen. Oh, they're from the 80s, they're a hair band. They're not. They're really not. I mean, for any old rock fan or any Led Zeppelin fan, try watching Runnin' with the Devil and tell me that is not the next Robert Plant and Jimmy Page. You can't. You can't do it. From David Lee Roth's open shirt and his blonde hair to the way Eddie's just moving around, playing that guitar, they just look like the next big thing in rock and roll. And truth be told, they were. They became the biggest band in the world, and for good reason. However, in 1984, David Lee Roth decided to go solo. Sammy Hagar joined the group, and they were never the same. Finally, David Lee Roth is reunited, and we are getting another album, the 7th album under David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen and Alex Van Halen on drums. Now, I certainly haven't forgotten about Michael Anthony, whose backing vocals just cannot be matched from Wolfgang Van Halen, but to be honest, it's an okay loss to have the group back together with David Lee Roth. To be honest, what I've heard of the new album, it's actually pretty good. I think it's a lot heavier than I would expect, and Wolfgang himself, he's doing a good job. I think he's a young kid, he's still learning a lot, and I think a lot of people don't realize the type of egos and type of players he's having to play with at such a young age. It's not like, when Van Halen got together back in the mid-'70s or early 70s, or a lot of younger bands where they were just growing up together and they knew each other a lot and all this. I mean, he has to come in and play bass for Van Halen, this young kid. And a lot of people were giving him flack for it. And, to be honest, I think he's a fine player. I've never listened to a live showing the last few years or even the new stuff that they've done and thought he's done a bad job at all. I never even thought too much about the bass. I thought it was good and not bad, and he should certainly have more credit than he does. To be able to step into the shoes of Michael Anthony and to be able to play with Van Halen on stage. And that says something. But you know what? I'm not here to talk about new Van Halen. I'm not here to talk about Wolfgang. I'm here to talk about the debut album of Van Halen. We're coming down to the release of the 7th album of Van Halen. It's called A Different Kind of Truth, and it is released in 1 week. Just 1 week. I gotta tell you, I am excited. I am excited. Like I said, I've heard some of the stuff off the album, and I honestly couldn't ask for more. I mean, what could a lot of people be expecting from this? These people are, besides Wolfgang, they're in their late 50s, and they're walking much harder than I ever thought. I mean, that's all you can really ask for. Sure, David Lee Roth doesn't quite sound the same, but he sounds alright enough, and Eddie is just sounding great. I think he's sounding awesome right now. But, again, we're talking about the debut album. With many debut albums, it's a chance for a band to get people to notice them and to get people to hear them for the first time. And once in a while, you will get a debut album that really showcases a band. I mean, not just introduces the world to them, but it just changes things in music even. Like, it's just such an incredible record that it really makes everyone notice them, and everyone become a fan. So in looking at rock and roll on its own, there have certainly been some albums that have met this criteria. First of all, there was Led Zeppelin's Led Zeppelin 1 back in 1969. That album certainly had some big hits and really left an impression on the public, with hits such as Dazed and Confused, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, Good Times, Bad Times. They were truly an awesome band. Then in 1973, you had Lynyrd Skynyrd's Pronounced. That had almost all of Lynyrd Skynyrd's biggest hits on it. You had Freebird, you had Simple Man, Gimme 3 Steps, Tuesday's Gone. It was like a greatest hits. And they were just starting out. And then lastly, you have 1976. You had Boston, self-titled, which, to be honest, has all of their big hits on it. More Than a Feeling, Foreplay, Long Time, Peace of Mind, Rock and Roll Band, Smokin'. Again, it's a whole nother greatest hits kind of album. And for Boston, it's pretty much their greatest hits. But those three albums certainly were some truly great debuts. And Van Halen's was the next.
Girl, you really got me now. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing.
Released in 1978, Van Halen's self-titled debut just rocks. From start to finish, there isn't a bad song on it, and most of them are great. I mean, when just from the start, you got Runnin' with the Devil, one of their biggest hits of all time. It's still, to this day, a classic. I mean, that incredible chorus is just such a sing-along type of chorus, and it's just such an awesome song to start with. And then you have Eruption after that. Eruption, one of the best solos in music history. Just Eddie Van Halen just showing what he can do. It has really taken a life of its own. I mean, Eruption has almost single-handedly gotten many people back in the late 70s into playing the guitar again. You know, it's become, to this day, one of the greatest instrumentals of all time. And, you know, a big part of that is that Eddie managed to popularize the technique of tapping on the guitar. And, you know, he's definitely one of the most revolutionary guitarists, definitely of his time. In fact, I would definitely go as far as to say he's the best guitarist of his generation and one of the best of all time. And certainly you got a taste of it with Eruption. Now, when looking at the rest of the record, some other major hits off the album are Ain't Talking About Love. That is one of Eddie's best riffs. I love that riff from him. It gets the song off on a great track. And also you have You Really Got Me, the Kinks cover. And, you know, actually when looking at the album, there's a few covers on here. There's You Really Got Me, and then Ice Cream Man, which to me is one of Van Halen's most underrated songs. I really love this track. It's just from the start where, you know, David is playing the acoustic up until the point where the band just comes in, and the rest of the song is just this incredible dose of hard rock. It's just such an awesome song. With Eddie having two solos, it's truly an awesome song. And then, yeah, going back to You Really Got Me, it's a great cover of the Kinks classic. And honestly, it's almost as good. You know, I have a hard time with covers because even if I think they sound better, it's hard for me to say that they are better because it's not an original. You're taking someone else's work and covering it. So you're not actually doing that work to make the song. I mean, it's already been made. You're covering someone else's work. So in the end, I'd still say it's not quite the best version just because it's not original. But it's definitely a great cover. Now when you're looking at some of the other songs on the album, you have Little Dreamer, which is a slower song. Van Halen, they're definitely a hard rock band, but unlike AC/DC, they managed to mix it up a little bit here and there. And on their first album, Little Dreamer's a little slower. Certainly not a ballad. They've certainly got a lot slower with Sammy Hagar, and a lot of other rock bands have gotten much slower with their songs. But Little Dreamer is definitely the slowest on the track on the album, and it's still good. I really enjoy it. The chorus especially was really great. Um, then looking at some of the other songs on here, two other two other really great songs that I love off the album are "Feel Your Love Tonight." Again, just an awesome riff from Eddie, and I haven't mentioned David's vocals, but this is one of his best vocals, I think. Definitely on the album. I really love the lyrics and the vocals from David. And then another one I really love is Atomic Punk. Doesn't have the best chorus, but I just love the verses are great. It's just another rockin' track. Jamie's Crying is an interesting one. I enjoy the song, but it's not one of my favorites. It's got a decent chorus. It's a good song, but not one of my favorites. And then when you look at the other two songs off the record, you got I'm the One and On Fire. Now they're the only two that I'm not as kicked about as the others. All the rest on the album, the other 9 songs, I really like a lot. And they're really great songs, but I'm the One and On Fire, each kind of have, I don't know, I'm not really kicked about the choruses on either of those songs. They both rock great, but just the chorus I'm not too kicked about on either of them. So if I had to say, which ones aren't quite as good as the rest, those are the two, but they're still good. So when looking at this album as a whole, it is one of the best debuts in rock and roll history, and in the end, it's possibly one of the best in all music history, just because it introduced you to the next big thing in rock and roll, and I love the album. It's just such an incredible record. I mean, there isn't one song to skip. If I had to choose songs to skip, there's none. Listen to the whole thing, because it's all great. And then when you look at the standouts, I would probably have to say Running with the Devil, Eruption, Ain't Talking About Love, Feel Your Love Tonight, and Ice Cream Man. Those 5 are definite standouts. Those are the 5 best on the album, and I really love them all. So, at the end of the day, you don't come across albums like this too much, and most bands can only dream of releasing a record like this, an album this good. And so, having said that, I will be giving Van Halen's self-titled debut a 10 out of 10. Not one bad song. It isn't perfect, but this first album is just awesome. It just introduces the world to the next big rock band, and you really couldn't ask for a better start. I mean, it's right there with those other 3 I mentioned earlier in the review. It's right there with Pronounced, Boston, and Led Zeppelin 1. It's just a truly outstanding debut, and unfortunately, Van Halen does not reach this level of greatness again for 6 years. It takes 6 years for them to match this quality again. But it's hard to match this again. It's hard to match it at all. It's hard to even do this, to come out with a record this strong. But until we actually get to 1984, everyone enjoy the ride, because there isn't a bad David Lee Roth record. They are all great. And if you hadn't guessed already, I'm definitely recommending this to you. I mean, if you love music at all, you owe it to yourself to give Van Halen a chance. They're one of the greatest hard rock bands of all time, and this is one of the best rock and roll albums ever. Van Halen 1. Great record. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it now. Now, right now. Right now. Seriously, if you haven't heard it, stop listening to me. Go out in your car. I don't care if you're watching this at midnight. Go buy it on iTunes. This is in the middle of the day. Try going to buy the CD or something. Just go listen to this album any way possible. Because, you know what, you're missing out if you haven't heard Van Halen before, or if maybe you've heard a song and you haven't quite, liked it very much. You need to give them a chance, and you need to start with the debut, because they're just so good. And honestly, it's just such a great album. So seriously, if you haven't heard this album, go get it now. And that's it. That's my Van Halen 1 review. So we got 6 days until until the next big Van Halen album. And we're going to continue on Van Halen week tomorrow with Van Halen 2. See you then. Rock on.